You know, every virus, every plague requires their big, chunky, powerful boy, and Dying Light is no different. Today, I will talk about the Demolisher in every variant we have come across so far. So welcome back my Gooners to yet another Dying Light video. I appreciate your time. And like the title says, this video will be about all the Demolisher variants, not all Demolishers we've encountered like the Pet Demolisher those rat bastard kids had in the following. Also, if I miss any, please let us know in the comments and I'll pin you. However, I do believe I found all the variants. This is the second video for this series, or I guess third if you want to consider all the Sentient Volatiles video as the first. If not, then the first video would be all the variants for the volatiles. Either way, like I do in the beginning of this series, we must first begin with the original concept art. So pop open a Red Bull, a monster, get yourself a snack, and prepare yourself to enjoy the video. Oh, and if you haven't watched this video where I go over all the main antagonists in Dying Light and the future of this channel, you should consider giving it a watch. Alright, let's begin with these four images. They are all basically the same with a few minor details. For these designs, they kept the original concept of them being riot police. Their bodies are heavily armored, however the main thing that sets them apart from the Demolishers we got is their size. These guys are a whole lot smaller and appear less menacing. Let's start with the one on the top left. This guy is completely covered with armor except for his overgrown monster's arms. A similarity they all share, it appears they wanted this variant to always have above average strength, and whatever the original mutation was, it was always going to alter their arms. Honestly, for this design, they could have kept it as just a random armored zombie. The mask and goggles do make it look cool. Alright, for the top right one, its armor seems more disheveled and torn by some protruding body parts. However, the face on this thing really kills the design. Also, for this variant, one of its arms is significantly bigger than the other. The bottom left one is a combination of the first two. It has torn armor and protruding growths. However, it kept similar body proportions to the first one. The face on this design was fixed, but overall, this thing doesn't seem much of a threat. In fact, it appears to be smaller than the other two. The bottom right one, on the other hand, takes the design of the last one and enhances it in every way. Not only is it bigger, but the growth on its body seems to be spreading, giving it more armor. I do like the mask design. It doesn't fully show the face, only vaguely showing the eyes of the person that once was. This design is possibly the closest to what we know as a Demolisher. Alright, those were the generic designs. Now we can go over the bombastic ones. We start with this monstrosity. Oh boy, just imagine if we'd gotten this one. A quadruped demolisher. Now, I don't think this thing would have been able to do parkour, but just imagine having to run away from this thing. I will say the design is a huge drastic difference from what we got. Its body seems to be fully overtaken by the virus, leaving only small traces of humanity. See, the main issue for the Demolisher design, at least for me, is the whole riot gear thing. It restricted the Demolisher too much. This design would have been perfect for the Demolisher in the sense that its body is just so muscular and big that it doesn't require armor. Then we got this thing. It's just fucking wicked. The only thing I don't like about it is its face. Like, half of it has been overtaken by some type of tumors. However, I think this is what makes this design work. The mutation caused by the virus seems to be causing new growths across its body. Things are ripping out of it. Like, look at its leg, it has 2 in 1. Its arm literally has become a weapon. The clothes are torn, revealing its muscular complexion. Overall, the design is very well made, and I do appreciate that this could have easily been a normal civilian and not necessarily riot police. And of course, I saved the best for last. This thing would have been, in my opinion, the best choice for the Demolisher. I do think the name would have had to be changed though. This seems like a mutation caused to a volatile, forcing their body to continue growing, ripping them apart. This was the epitome of what the virus could have been. Imagine a Demolisher slash volatile chasing you around, not confined to the ground like the normal Demolisher. But I do understand them wanting to make more variants, and this thing just too closely resembles a volatile. I would definitely be okay with them adding this variant to the game. The design is just so animalistic and brutal, I love it. Alright, we begin with the Demolisher we ended up getting. Now don't get me wrong, I do like this design, I just don't like the whole riot gear stuff. Like, most of the mutations are caused for a reason, but lore-wise, this doesn't really make any sense. Now, I get there are variants, but is there any specific reason as to why only these guys mutated into Demolishers? They literally had to remove the whole armor thing in the next games because it just didn't really make much sense. Anyways, the armor they're wearing must have been mutated too, because there ain't no way it's surviving that many bullets. But I do like how its armor is being torn by its body. Your typical Demolisher is slow, so they have a charging attack. They can also hurtle concrete from the ground at you. But for the better part, they seem to be more of a threat to other zombies than the player at times. Oh, I do wonder though if their armor protected them in some way from UV lights, and that's why they mutated into Demolishers, since they weren't as exposed. There are also Demolishers wearing military armor instead of police riot gear. They can be discerned from the green color. They are basically just the same with a few minor differences. Then there's this Demolisher with some green on it. I don't know if it's supposed to be a military Demolisher. Sergeant Deathrow. So for this specific variant, it's a little confusing. The design is basically the same, however it has significantly more health. Originally it was only in the prison, but it seems it can now be found in Old Town. However, the red bar and its moniker don't show up. They are also not as strong as the original Sergeant Deathrow. You can tell them apart from the original Demolishers by the amount of damage it takes to kill one. Mask Demolisher. This thing is just basically your normal Demolisher, with the exception being that it has the gas tank it wears and its orange clothes. I will say the orange suit does go hard, and the gas mask does make it look a whole lot better than the original one in my opinion. So yeah, for this thing, if you hit its gas tank, it just goes boom, similar to the gas tank infected. So for the following, we were introduced to a new type of enemy, the Freaks of Nature. They are basically larger and more durable versions of the normal infected. We actually got to see 3 Demolisher variants. The first one wasn't given a name, but you can encounter it while doing one of the missions. When you enter the field covered by the blue fog, you find an abnormally large Demolisher. This thing is gigantic compared to all the other Demolishers we had ever come across so far. Then the 2 named Freaks of Nature we got are the Hauler and the Behemoth. They are just insanely large, and their armor makes them even less susceptible to damage. Most forms of attack hardly do any damage. Fighting them at close range is a big no, but if you try fighting them from a far range, they'll just hurtle concrete on your ass. However, they are just as stupid as your typical Demolisher, so they aren't really much of a threat, they're just annoying to kill. So the THV strain seems to have drastically changed the Demolisher. They still keep their muscular towering bodies, but they no longer wear the armor like the Demolishers did in Dying Light 1. In fact, the Demolisher in Dying Light 2 seems to have 3 different stages to it. The first stage is relatively covered in a hard rock substance. The second stage seems to shed most of the rock. Its body is further ripped apart by the mutation, and now more of these blisters cover the body. And finally, the final stage is just basically more of the second stage, honestly barely noticeable. This new design is more disgusting than the original. Its jaw is split open like volatiles, and its whole body has been horrifically mutated. It acts like your normal Demolisher was an extra added attack. It can now cause shockwaves that can knock down the player. Now, I need some clarification. Does the black substance make them stronger or weaker? I mean, you'd assume the more armor it has, the harder it would be to take out, right? So if anybody could clarify for me, please let me know in the comments. The Seething Demolisher. It's basically like your stage 1 Demolisher with all the rock substance, however the key difference here is the red glowing blisters around its body. It's also more durable than your typical Demolisher. One can be found when completing the quest for Baba. Then we've got the Demolisher in Caranage Hall. The only thing is, I don't know if it's supposed to be a Seething Demolisher, but it basically looks the same. It just appears to have a whole lot more red blisters on its body. And if it's not its own thing, then I guess this is a new variant. Most of them are your typical old Demolisher, but I think they deserve a spot in this video. So obviously we have that Seething Demolisher, the skull face pet. The red blisters make it glow red, which honestly the design for this guy isn't too bad. More of its body seems to be torn by these protruding bones. I only wish they'd given it a special ability or something. Keeping with the spirits of Caranage Hall, we actually get quite a few Demolishers. So the next Demolisher I want to go over is Gorilla. This Demolisher is fought during the Caranage Hall second freak fight. Its body has a different tone of color compared to anything we have seen. It's kinda adopted a purplish gray skin tone. The face seems to mostly be overtaken by some tumorous growths. Also, it appears to have more blisters across its body. It does have the same capabilities of pounding the ground to cause shockwaves. And a small detail, all the other Demolishers in Dying Light 2 have black hair, but this guy has white grayish hair. Next, we have the 3 gods we fight when completing the Hephaestus Forge. Essentially, we have to build a weapon that can slay gods. The arena is mounted with flamethrowers spitting fire constantly. The further along you get, the harder it becomes, and eventually, in the final test, before awakening the gods, you have to go past the stinky GOONER. Once that is done, you have to kill 3 Demolisher gods. Now, I do gotta apologize in advance, but I'll probably butcher their names. So we have Goddess Athena herself, which funnily enough, she actually launches zombies at you, which is hilarious. Alright, for the next 2 gods, I'm just shooting in the dark, but I guess we have Axiocersus and Cadmilus. Now, Dying Light the Beast has arguably the best design and my favorite for the Demolisher. It's just so raw and highly resembles the concept design without the armor, with the exception of the mutated body parts. Either way, I highly like how it's no longer covered in that black substance. And it no longer has the ugly blisters, and best of all, no armor. This is the Demolisher I've always wanted. Its body is disfigured, monstrous, and overall looks more like a brutish beast. I love how its back is torn, its ribcage bursts similar to the design of the volatiles in Dying Light 1, and how its muscles are being ripped apart. Apart from the chimeras, I wish we'd been given at least 1 new mutation for the Demolisher, but sadly we only got chimeras. Alright, so for the chimeras, I guess we were technically given like 3 chimeras that resemble Demolishers in one way or another. Technically more, but those chimeras are literally just called chimeras. I won't be going into much detail about them. If you want, you can go watch this video I made a while back ago. So we start with the Defect. This thing is just a bit larger than your typical Demolisher. Most of its skin is gone and is now replaced by a more muscular body. Overall, possibly the worst chimera in the game, in my opinion at least. Then we have the upgraded version of the Defect, the Behemoth. This thing is physically much stronger and larger. Its body is further ripped apart by the virus. And this guy is basically the most common type of chimera we fight in the game. It is highly durable, fast, strong, and overall what a chimera should be. Then the last Demolisher chimera we got is the Colossus. Its body just overall resembles an overgrown Demolisher, with the only exception being the gas mask it wears. It is the largest chimera we fight in the beast, and like the Behemoth, they can both summon other types of infected to aid them. Sadly, this chimera is possibly the easiest to beat. There are these toxic chemical boxes all around, and if you guide the Colossus, it'll charge at them. Once infected by this toxin, its durability drops significantly, allowing you just to kill it. There you go. I believe those are all the variants of the Demolisher. Now, once again, this isn't a video on all the Demolishers, but rather all the variants we come across. I feel like at first the Demolisher was supposed to be your generic brute zombie, which yeah, I mean it was, but as we saw with those original concept designs, they could have created something truly horrifying, but alas, they decided to go against it. And I don't hate the Demolisher, well, now at least. Initially, I just didn't like it for lore reasons. Then with Dying Light 2, the design is just disgustingly good and bad at the same time. I like how its body is being torn apart by the mutation. However, the rock material and the blisters were too much of a drastic change from Dying Light 1. I know the original design had small blisters, but it wasn't overall a big part of its design. I do feel like the Beast finally got the Demolisher right. This design overall feels like what a Demolisher should be and not just some type of generic generic big zombie. But this is just my opinion. I know a bunch of people like the design for Dying Light 1 and 2, which is fair. I don't hate them, they just weren't my cup of tea. But you have now officially reached the end of the video. If I did indeed miss any variant, please let me know. I hope you have a good day or night. Like, sub, or don't, as long as you enjoyed the video. This is Janky Bodoques signing off. Goodbye.